Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Saturday Night Later, the show where sketch teachers and writers break down SNL sketches so we can learn about the structure that goes into writing sketch comedy. I'm your host, Marina Templesman. I'm the writer of the upcoming book, Unusual Things, a guide to sketch comedy for writers, fans, and everyone else. And I'm joined by my amazing co-host and author of the Substack, My Comedy Fantasy, Madalyn Baldanzi. Hello, Madalyn.
Hi, Marina. Hi, Shem.
Hi. Hi, yes. And well, with us today is a very special guest. He is an award-winning director, writer, actor, musician, and you've seen his work on the BBC, Vice, and the UCB, and many other places as well. Please welcome Shem Panant. Shem, we're so happy you're here. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, all and sundry. I'm excited. I'm sad I don't have a Substack like both of you. I feel left out.
Oh my gosh. No, you're here now. That's the important part. We're so pumped that you're here. So this is a very special episode today, and we are so excited to talk about it with you for a number of reasons. But it was the season premiere of SNL UK just this past weekend. And so we are going to be talking all about that. And basically, just to give context for anyone who's tuning in for the first time, the reason we started the show is because when all of us have taught sketch, all three of us here have taught sketch. And when you're teaching sketch, you always tell your students to see as many sketch shows as they possibly can, basically. You said, see shows, come back, talk about them. So you learn so much from watching sketches together, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and having sort of shows in common that you can deconstruct together and explore together really, really helps. And so it's very unusual to have a sketch show that's live that you can all kind of see as a group and then talk about, because sketch shows are often in small underground theaters and other smaller places. But SNL is a show that you can watch that is live with a number of people, millions of people, in fact. And so it's really helpful as material to sort of watch and learn from with fellow sketch nerds, sketch writers, and all that. So that's the kind of motive behind the show. We're sort of approaching the sketches that we watch as though we're sketch teachers, kind of talking about what's working, what's not, deconstructing the structure of those sketches for people to learn from. And extra exciting is that this is the kickoff of SNL UK, right? So SNL has been around in the US since 1975. So it's really interesting to have this sort of new thing that's like, I kind of tapping into this familiar brand, but also something completely new. So that will probably come into play in the conversation a little bit. But before we jump into the specific sketches, I'd love to hear sort of like what your expectations were, if you had any going into this show. Like maybe Shem, can we start with you? Like, were there any expectations that you had, and it's totally fine to say you had no expectations at all. That's totally an option.
I want to be nice. I'm I'm a professional hater, I guess. But I was like, hey, I'm happy everyone's got jobs. I'm so glad there's like sketch writing opportunities. I wish there was a thing like this that had like a lot of eyeballs and attention on it when I was coming up. So I was like, wouldn't it be great if this was good? So I was just sat like lean forward going like, please don't be bad. So my expectations, I guess I'll frame them around an attitude of hope.
Of hope. Okay, great. Awesome. All right. And Madalyn, how about you? What were your expectations going into it? And then I'll do a temperature check afterwards for how we're feeling about the episode.
Franchises are not cool, right? Typically, trying to think of a cool franchise. Can't think of one. So I'm like, this is not gonna be cool. Was kind of my thought going in, but like SNL isn't cool in the US anymore. Zootopia, okay, all right, yeah, okay. Yeah, that was a good sequel. Anyways, I was I'm like, how is this gonna be cool? But SNL's not cool. Comedy is kind of nerdy, but I think like things that happen organically in comedy kind of like seem to end up being a little bit funnier than things that are really like manufactured. But then I'm gonna say how I felt about it.
Great, yeah, go ahead.
And it's kind of like something a student could be heartened by, I think, which is like, yeah, they put on a live sketch show. Like, if you put on a live sketch show, you put on a live sketch show. I know that's like sounds obvious, but if you put on a live sketch show that you don't have that long to make, and I've done a lot of sketchgrams in my life, most of it is fine. some of it is very bad, and one or two things are great, and that's just how it is. And it was sort of nice to see, like, yes, that's true. And also, like, if a group of people make something together in a short amount of time, it automatically like is joyful on some level
Yeah.
and fun and exciting, whether or not it's a franchise.
Mhm.
So it was cool. Like I'm pumped. I'm just glad there's more sketch.
Yeah, yeah. Shem, how about you? What was your take?
Great. So like I started with an atmosphere of hopefulness and joy, and I will preface this with like I love everyone on the cast. I don't know any of them, but I'm just so happy they have jobs. Love all the writers. Again, don't know any. Well, I've met one or two of them before, but again, so happy they have jobs. So positive, so supportive for like the overall endeavor of people getting money to do comedy. But I think and I'm not even like I also I love America. I love American comedy. I teach it. I teach it at one of the best
We've
places
been
to do
waiting
American
for you to
comedy.
say it.
I mean, so yeah, so like I'm just like, hey, you're all great people. American comedy is great. Hey, I'd love to work for either SNL. Having said that, I think mid the opening sequence, I was screaming, "Fuck you! Fuck every single one of you! You belong in the Hague!" I was so angry. Like it was an abomination. The comedy was fine. The sketch, the individual like writing of sketches is fine, but the imposition of like the SNL of it all was like there's about 100 years of great sketch comedy in the UK. So many people who have been so much better at like setting a tone, setting a palette, making it feel like when they were like the sort of stupid fucking like 70s sax of it all, and they're all like sort of step dancing as they come in, and it's all glitzy. Everyone's like, "Woo, what's going on?" It's like, where am I? What country is this? In no world are a bunch of British people going live from London. Yay! Oh my god! There's some sketch they all started like dancing, and again, this is the loudest any of you have ever heard me talk. I can guarantee. But I was screaming "fuck off" at my TV, like angrily. Like it was just so. It felt like cultural imperialism. Like I was like,
That's
what
really
are you
interesting.
Doing?
That is the context I desperately need.
Yeah, I'm really interested in this because I think that on a sketch by sketch, as for a teacher basis, there's that piece of the show, right, where we're gonna talk through all the sketches structurally and dissect them and what students can learn from them. But I think that is such an important piece to also bring to this, because that's also true for any sketch writers thinking about what is the context that you're writing for, right? Like, where are you putting on the show? Is this a show that you're writing, here in the U.S. for an American audience? It was interesting to be an American audience member watching something that ostensibly isn't for us, but then I'm being like, I think some of that is for us for me. But like, anyway, I thought there were some really interesting things here around the questions of audience and making sure you're intentional in your audience. And so let's just go ahead and jump into the specific sketches, I think, right? Like, so Shem, you already started talking a little bit about the first one. So this cold open, Keir Starmer is preparing basically trying to get himself psyched to, or ready to call Trump, right? So it's basically, we're kind of mapping a like anxious in a relationship game, right? Of like, like you can do it. Yeah, go ahead. What were you thinking?
Like all the air
Yeah.
my body as it was happening. It was like,
Yep,
why? Like it felt so long. Like great Keir Starmer impression, wonderful actors, wonderful writers, love you all. But it was like so long, so like long-winded. They had all the energy of like, why is it taking this? There was a show called Spitting Image, that was a topical sketch show that was all done with puppets, and it was like so amazing and so savage and so biting, and it was like just really fun, like really joy. They tried to recreate it, they can't. But that had like really great like savage political energy. And there's also Have I Got News for You, which they've now ported over again. So like there is a culture of really good biting, fun, sharp and short political satire,
right.
And this felt just very long-winded and very like tame, and like the central like the game was like fun when they brought out the Gen Z advisor to like talk. It's like, why does this sketch have like a whole sketch within the sketch? And I was just like tearing what hair I have left out a little bit, the length and style of it all, but love the lighting.
The love the lighting. There we go. Perfect. And it's totally fine, by the way, to feel this way. So here, my thought on this one was, I found myself kind of just this was the first sort of like, oh, this is sort of a through the looking glass moment of being oh, it's really interesting to be coming at this from the perspective of not this like in the US SNL, they've been very, very focused on the like on the Trump cold opens that have been like getting a little bit tiresome. So at least it was interesting to sort of, it felt like as a thought experiment, but like inverse of what that looks like. I think that structurally, and it's interesting to see, and like for me, it was my first time seeing a comedic impression of Keir Starmer too. So that was just an interesting experience for me, right? Like I thought that was, again, as a new audience member, as again, this is really, really basic, but I think all the setup that you theoretically would need to understand, like for an audience who might be less familiar with politics, I felt was very clearly laid out, right? I do think that the Gen Z edition was probably part of what made that sketch like feel a little bit airy to me. Like I do think that you probably could have just tightened it up quite a bit. I agree. While it was not the most biting for sure, but for me, it felt novel. Just again, literally just for me in seeing this like Keir Starmer impression, which I know must exist in many other places, but that I just hadn't seen yet. So yeah, Madalyn, what did you think?
I'm honestly was like, oh, I don't know what any of this means. I didn't understand. I was like, this is politics that I don't know imposed on a cold open from New York. So I don't really have anything to add.
Right. I think that what I will say is that I think that when you're writing a topical or political sketch, one thing that's good to think about is it clear what the writer's point of view is about the actual characters that they're writing about? And I do think that was clear. Like I think that they did.
Backbone leader.
Yes.
Made sense as a game. They could have played that harder and doubled down to it. It probably would have been more successful.
Yes. And I think that's kind of speaking to what Shem was saying before too, of just it feeling like not like biting enough. And I think that the bar of how you tackle topical sketches right now kind of can be higher given how, given the state of the world, basically. So anyway, I thought that was really, in terms of learning and structure, I think that thinking about point of view of the author, I think that there's a lot to sort of distill here, and thinking about the amount of bite that you do want to introduce if you are kind of going to go in a topical direction. Shem, what else were you thinking? You look like you're contemplating something else.
The weekend when we get to it, weekend update was better. That had like a little bit more bite to it, and that was like, oh, this is a tone I expect. So.
Great, totally. Yeah, Madalyn, anything else you wanted to mention before?
It's just funny to preserve the worst parts of the cold open from the US show.
Like just even like that led in, like I was like, well, maybe it'll get better as it goes along, and then they had the intro of it all, and that feels like so like 70s New York are recreating what Americans like about this show, but not what's good about this show. Like how when it launched, it felt cool, it felt different. There was so many. London's actually kind of cool. Like it has like fun like people in it. It has like a fun energy, and you use none of that. Like there were so many London UK based sketch shows that have this really fun like underground like grimy energy where you're discovering something, or you feel like you're in with all these like cool people, and they use none of that energy. So instead it felt like I was in like a TGI Fridays or something like that, which is
interesting. This is really interesting to me because I'm very excited to keep talking about the sketches in this one, because I think that there was a little bit of like I think even it was so strange like during watching the opening sequence, like even the font really kind of threw me off, where I was like, oh, this feels sort of like a kind of uncanny valley in a way of like, and my hope is that I think that because I also want to preface it by saying I actually enjoyed watching this like much more than I think I expected, like on the whole. Like I thought it was actually like a fairly strong kickoff to a live sketch show, and I do think that it will continue to I hope that it gets to continue to find its footing and find what is special about it. And
I think it could actually end up being amazing and unique.
Yes, I completely think so too. I think that the SNL branding is sort of what is allowing it to have been born, and then I hope it will go to college and become its own little thing.
It feels very season 1 of The American Office, where they're like just repeating a lot of lines. It's like, no, that's not what's fun about you. Like, no self-respecting British comedian walks down the street, turns the camera and goes, "Hey," like that. They're all like self-effacing and like, "Oh fuck, like leave me alone." Like that's the energy. So it felt like just a weird, different, uncanny valley energy to be put on British comedy. I'll stop laughing.
So they have to find their Michael Scott likes children of sketch comedy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's keep moving because I know we have an hour, so we'll plow through. So monologue, I found like kind of like a charming and like a nice like kind of almost like an aunt sort of ordaining the show, like breaking the bottle against the ship a little bit. I didn't really see much in terms of like a sketch structure there. So, but Shem, you're shaking your head. Let's hear it.
Oh, you were correct. There was no sketch structure to it at all, and I just hate it because it was like, I love Tina Fey, wall of talent. She just doesn't belong. Like they're just literally a million. Like Olivia Colman would have been so good in that role, or like who has like a sketch background. There's like a Anointed. There were so many incredible like sketch performers I grew up watching, or my parents' generation grew up watching. Like they have the talent there, so it just felt really odd, like going like, and now here's sketch comedy for you, which is something the UK has been doing for a long time. It's
right.
Like,
you know,
and also,
kind of funny to think about. Oh yeah, go please.
And the other thing, like in that monologue, when it's just like, and here's a famous person, here's a celebrity, here's another celebrity. That's again not the culture. Like we don't give a shit. Like it should be like, here are some jokes. This is funny. Not like Graham Norton's also in the crowd, or whoever the fuck, fucking Michael Cera. Like yeah, great. Like he's famous, but like I would rather a joke in those moments. That felt very odd.
Yeah. No, totally. I think no. This is Shem. This is great. It's really interesting to hear this context. I think that there's something it just occurred to me as you were saying, like, why Tina Fey? I was like, oh, it's almost like in a way the show is running for president, and the host of the first show is almost like a strategic vice president that they're trying to pick. And it's interesting to see like who are they trying to cater to with the vice presidential pick. And in this case, I do think that like so much of it is because it doesn't have to be SNL, the UK, right? Like it could just be any sketch show that's performed live, right? So it seems like so much of it was sort of strategically launching it in conjunction with like the brand association of SNL. And again, I'm really curious about if that is something that they will feel the need to lean on as much, or if that will kind of evaporate with, successive like episodes. Cause it is definitely an indicator of like what they thought that the best strategy is going into it. So I'm really curious. But anyway, let's jump into the first actual sketch of the night. And this was under the skincare product Underage, right? Okay. Yes. Okay. Shem is doing a fist pump. You want to jump down in? What are you thinking?
Yes, that felt like a sketch, and that felt like a British sketch. Like I love the use of the word "nonce." It's one of my favorite words that I don't get to use enough here. So it's like, okay, this feels like mean enough to be in a British sketch show, and then just kind of said, "Hey, isn't it fun to say the word nonce over and over again?" It's like, okay, well, like do more. So it was like on the one hand, like love the tone of it. Felt like good. Felt like a fun, like well produced, like sketch with like that edgy British humor about paedophiles they love to do. But then they just it just went on too long. They wasn't like getting enough from it. But like it felt like a decent. I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, Madalyn, how about you? What did you think?
Yeah, good commercial parody, good start. I thought the game was clear and fun. I did think it was interesting the difference in video production. Like, I'm like, oh, these directors are not as experienced as the SNL directors in New York. It was too slow up top. I think some of the cuts were too slow, but I was also like, oh, they'll get this in 3 episodes. But I thought it was a good, decent start.
Totally. My experience with this one was I first did not know what the word nonce was. And so it became very clear very quickly, but I didn't have the kind of hard reveal that the audience clearly did in the studio. But now
I'm
I know
so embarrassed that I knew what nonce was, but not about Keir Starmer.
No, I think that's great. I agree, Shem. I think that this one I thought that the premise crystal clear, really fun things. I do think that this one could have heightened more. And I think that the note, so basically the way kind of rolling backwards from this one, I think basically this is born out of the commercial parody sense of like this obsession with like the idea of like having cream that makes you look younger and an obsession with trying to look younger, like the logical conclusion of that is where you come, where like what you come to here, right? That's the fun of it. So I think that my note for heightening this one would have been less focused on like specifically maybe some of the like husbands in jail part and more like some of the fun accessorizing around that idea, right? Like maybe like, is there something that it comes with? Like, what is the packaging that it comes in? Does it look like a like teddy bear or something? I don't know. Like, I feel like there's something more like more specifics that you could probably play with to get back at that, maybe that original observation that you're pivoting off of. Shem, what do you think in terms of like heightening for this one? What anything comes to mind?
I mean, we have so many legendary nonces in the UK that I think like having some of those as celebrity guests,
Yeah,
like, I'd
totally.
like to endorse that. Would be the first leaf I like head to.
Yeah, totally. Great. Awesome. Yeah. So like more kind of cultural reference points too. And like, yeah, which makes sense because there's often like celebrity sort of endorsements for products like that. But yeah, again, really clear commercial parody. And Shem, I love hearing you say that this felt kind of like more comedically, culturally like appropriate, basically. All right, let's move on to the next one then. This sketch number 2 was the David Attenborough, the dinner with historical figures. Okay, I have to say, I loved this from a teaching standpoint. I thought this was really fun. Madalyn, you're shaking your head in bewilderment a little bit. Let's hear what you say, and then I'll explain why I loved it so much.
Well, there was just this felt very not American to me in a way, but then like because it was SNL, it failed. The way that it was set up with just like David Attenborough to camera explaining what it was for a long time and then cutting to the sketch was just like a very dislocating move and a strange way to set it up to me. And then it felt like them trying to do the like New York SNL thing of we're gonna just have there be a premise so that people can do impressions bucket, but then it was too set up like a sketch, so it wasn't quite that, but the sketch premise had too many characters to actually fully explore, and then it just ended in a sex joke. The premise being all of that's such a long walk to get there. David Attenborough reanimates famous dead British people, and instead of talking about important things, they just talk about the food. But yeah, there was a game there, but it was everything surrounding it was such a strange choice.
Shem, did you have thoughts you want to share on this one, or I could also talk about how much
there was a sketch show in the UK called The Fast Show where they would just have a sketch. It would be about 30 seconds long. And it would be incredible. It was like so like rapid and good. And it's not that we don't know how to do it. So like I think like midway through the sketch, I was like, this is still happening. I was like. So yeah, like just the length of it all. I hate when people are like, I can do an impression, and it's just like that's the only reason why the sketch exists. And this was peak that. So I was very like, not for me. Please be over. Yes, it's fun that you have a wig that looks like Princess Di, but you're not like doing anything with it. So like, spare me.
Okay. Here are my notes then. As you know, like if a student were to bring this in, here's my notes. First, I think this is a good example of a sketch, like a joke at the top that doesn't actually distract from what it wants to play with, right? I'm David Attenborough and it can't be long now is a good example of starting with a joke that actually isn't muddying the waters, right? Okay, so I just want to mention that because I know we've talked a lot about past episodes about jokes that pull audiences out of it and make it confusing. I think this is a great example of a solid joke at the top. Okay, to me, what I liked about it is that to me, the unusual thing about this felt like the unusual thing is one of those like the hypothetical dinner where you invite famous people from the past, but all anybody wants to talk about is what they're going to order. And to me, that feels like the David Attenborough of it all feels like it sort of comes after the fact. But I'm actually kind of impressed with the way they set up this insane base reality so that they could play this one unusual thing. However, my note on the one unusual thing is that they didn't really play it that much. I do think that is the fun of this idea, though.
It took too long to set up. You could have done it so much faster.
I do think you could do it faster, but
there was no more room to make those jokes.
I think also the problem is just that there's too many characters. I think that if you had it be
Last
3
Supper
characters,
is an extra unusual thing.
3.
It doesn't have to be Last
That's
Supper.
true. Yes. That's a great point. Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be Last Supper. I think it could basically be, I'm David Attenborough. I'm the person who people always pick, but I'm going to be having like my own dinner with these people I reanimated. I'm so excited. Here they are. All right, we're having the topic conversation, and they only want to talk about the appetizers. The other problem here, I think, was that there was no it was just kind of ping-ponging back and forth with only lateral moves. Like David Attenborough didn't get more out of any character. Again, I think a lot of this is because there are too many characters in this. I think if you had 3 characters tops at this dinner, you could have given them each a little bit more of a game. Diana kind of had her own little thing going on, but I think you really could have played a fun game that heightened as we're trying to get the information out of like what makes the UK great or whatever it was they were trying to do. But
they
this,
had to
I
choose
think,
if it was a sketch or a celebrity impersonation bucket, and it can't be both at the same time.
Yeah, agreed. And I think even if it was a bucket, honestly, like I don't think you can have, I think that you have to then have a revolving door instead of everybody laid out at once.
100%.
Also for the studio audience sake, because like it's interesting to think our attention was being directed to places as viewers from home. A studio audience is just watching a tableau, right? Shem, what else were you thinking about in terms of this one, in terms of structure?
Oh, it was just I have the unhelpful, just a complete non-starter of like this has no reason to exist beyond like you just want to all do your fun little voices, like get out.
Okay.
It's like
yeah, no, that's totally.
Shem, you don't watch the you NYC SNL, right?
No.
So your standards have not been low.
No one will understand this, but I texted my friend after I watched it and said I never thought I'd be sad or miss the 11 o'clock show, which is a very early version of SNL that we like tried to do in like the 90s. It's where Ricky Gervais came from, but it's also where like Sacha Baron Cohen came from, but like loads of like weird, like we have like versions of this that we tried that felt more like authentic and interesting, but I'm aware of these like long meandering SNL like type everyone's got to like do a thing type sketches. Like, we were fine without these.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I really am hoping that it sort of sheds some of the like of what it needs to do to bridge to have been born, right? Like, I'm really hoping that it will move in more in that direction. I do think that this one, I will say that in terms of like sketch teaching, I would say an impressive thing to me about this is having a really unusual base reality that is clearly set up. And that I think is something to think about, because I think it's the difference between an unusual base reality that's clear versus a base reality with 5 unusual things going on. I think that is a distinction students struggle with sometimes.
But you could have just for the other side, you could have just had David Attenborough at a table with Agatha Christie, Diana, and Queen Elizabeth, and then been like, what are we doing here? And he's like, it's my fantasy, like 3 people you would have over for dinner. Oh, fun.
Right. That's
Like,
true. I mean, you also could have just scrapped the David Attenborough of it all together and been like, wow, I'm so excited. I got to resurrect my 3 favorite people anyway, and kind of jump in from. There's definitely more efficient ways into it, but still, I think that this one, I think that there's some juicy stuff to learn from this one, even if we all agree that like it didn't really succeed as a sketch, right? I think that's fair to say. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Next up, let's talk about Boobies Goes to the Films. Okay, which is another, I thought, a really fun joke at the top. Boobies Goes to the Films is a very fun joke. Obviously, it should be Boobies Goes to the Movies, whatever. Anyway, okay, let's chat about this one. What jumped out? Ups, downs. What are we thinking about this one?
I really enjoyed this game. I thought it was a funny game. I thought this was a rare example of a game where it earns a little bit more of a setup, so the turn ended up being really funny, and I don't think it took too long. I just don't think they heightened it enough or made any fun jumps with the game once it was announced, but I liked thought behind this one.
Yeah. Shem, how about you?
I don't know who the lead act. I don't know any of the actors' names, but the lead on this, great job. Really, really impressed. Like, it's like, oh, you're making. I'm like not loving the sketch. Like the premise was like fine, like, okay, but then when the turn happened and like the acting of it all was like, oh, you're like selling in the sketch. I like you as a performer. I want you to like do more. I want you to be free from the show, but like I'm just I had like so much like hope for like that particular person. Was like, great, like more power to you. I'm very excited to see what you do next.
Yeah, he was great. I really liked him.
It felt like one where maybe that was a character that he'd had, and in order to get to more beats, they needed to rely on the two actors to kind of like voice of reason it and feed him things to react off of more, but they were silent, and it felt like maybe someone, I don't know where he came from, but it felt like maybe someone who had done a lot of stuff for TikTok, not quite realizing yet how to write for like a live stage sketch. You got to use those voice of reason characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the other is like even having them, because at one point one of them said, it's not that bad of a movie or something like that. But I think that it was just the voice of reasoning, or not voice of reasoning, sorry, rather the unusual character. We just sort of hit a wall between in the scene between the unusual character and the voice of reason character. I love that turn. It really made me laugh. Why did it fucking suck? But I agree that there wasn't really any activation around it. I do think that another teachable thing here is the one beat that they really had was him watching the clip and not liking it. I don't think that's an active enough beat. I think that there's other ways to play it, because remember the unusual thing that's really fun is this specific character being so disdainful of the movie he just watched, right? I think you could have fun going into some of the point of view. Like there's an interesting little sprinkle of like, I just needed it to be good. We could have done something better. There was like a little bit of something that I just wanted to tease out because I liked his performance so much. I thought there was probably more that we could mine here. Yeah, that was my thought.
You also can't have us watch a character watching a laptop.
No, yeah. There's got to be something more active to do there. So yeah, I think that if this were in a classroom, I would have said like, let's just pitch some more active beats for it. What does it look like for the actors to try to get the interview back on track, right? Like, well, the thing when we were shooting, it was really interesting. Like people in the town kept coming by to whatever, like trying to share some fun anecdote to get the interview back on track to then set off some sort of other unusual game.
That
move,
anecdote
right?
was so great. Why did you suck?
Yeah.
like even like
Yeah.
just like those sort of
Yes.
simple moves feel like fun to do in that.
Exactly. Like, wait, so other people were present and they let this happen? Like, like things like that, right? Like you can definitely have more fun. So I think that again, teachable thing here, thinking about when you're watching, when you have an idea like this that is very kind of can be very talky, right? It's like literally a little kind of talk show that we're playing with. What are the ways that we can kind of surprise, like jangle the keys and then come back to the premise and have fun with it, right? So I think that this is again one that also I think structurally this one felt sort of the shape of it felt a little odd to me too. It felt like it sort of had a reveal and then one beat, which was watching the clip, and then it kind of just evaporated, I think. So I think that this is where we talk about beats and heightening. And I think as Madalyn said, thinking about the scene holistically, what is it all kind of amounting to together? How are you using the scene? I think that that's all really important to think about. Anything else to chat about? Okay, great. Move on to the next one. Okay, so this is the behind the scenes of the company, the place, the job is to make the internet bad. All right. Yeah, I thought this was a pretty, like, a little bit of a basic premise, and I thought they went really broad with it. And by broad, I just mean unspecific, not like broad characterizations. I thought it was a little unspecific and not particularly original. I think that if you do want to go to like internet is bad, I think you just like want to get really hyper specific, lean into the characters. I think that at one point, it felt more like documentary, and then it sort of turned into more of a situation room kind of mapping game a little bit. Yeah, I think this one you could probably just have. I think the premise was just a little uninspired to me on this one.
I think if you're like trying to figure out why this didn't quite work at home, like the more specifics you can make about why the internet is bad, the better. Like this is one of those observation sketches where you just have to like really come up with good, new, fresh observations. And I just want to point out that like cheering the fact that they got the girl to click on the wrong thing took up a lot of time and isn't actually heightening what the game was, right? So it like started to devolve a little bit into plot. It's just your job to come up with like the most well-observed specifics that you can, and this did not do that. And it really, like, it could have. I think that even though the premise was basic, this could have been a lot funnier with more jokes, faster, faster pace. Like, and I'm curious, Shem, if that's like a UK thing of like sitting in things a little longer, because this kind of sketch didn't. No, okay.
I had to learn to slow down and be emotional when I came to like this country America. Like in the UK, they have a lot of like very like fast, like sharp, like joke writers. Sketches are very like emotionally withheld and like very like I'm clever and I'm clever and here. So this is the kind of sketch they would normally knock out of the park, and it would have been a fantastic sketch in like 2003 or something like that. It just felt like we've had the internet for a while now. Your observation can't be like, oh, there's lots of like porn pop-ups aren't a thing that people deal with.
I couldn't believe it wasn't about like AI or like people with horrible takes. Like, couldn't believe it.
These aren't the problems we have on the internet. I wish for the days where it was like Family Guy pornography was the worst thing online. That's a salve for what's in the news, etc. So like it felt like so sort of old-fashioned and misguided in like a weird way. So I was like, what are we doing here? And it also felt like the astronomy club sketch where they're like sort of doing like forensics and whether or not someone has like a boyfriend or something like that, like people like looking at other people's like phones in like a situation like type thing. I've seen that done in like a much more interesting and exciting way, and that tied in, that had great performances, great emotional energy, and this was just like lots of like sort of dated jokes and then some people drinking coffee in a silly way.
Yeah, that's true. There was a lot of silly coffee drinking. That's a good point. Yeah. I think this one didn't really pop all that much. Like there were I got some chuckles, but it just didn't really do a ton for me, I think. But I do think that, again, a thing to think about for this is like kind of, again, getting specific in your games, not just internet is bad, but like, is there a way to dig even further? And the thing that you're referencing, Shem, is so much more specific, right? Like in terms of that mapping game, such a more specific emotional approach to it. And I think that that's something that's useful to kind of watch and compare and carry forward. I would also point people towards as another example of a sketch that's like the kind of behind, like the sort of behind the scenes of like why something is this way. There's the Above Average sketch about the upstairs neighbors. And that one's a really great example of a sketch that is also sort of working backwards from an observation and treating a relatable observation as though it is something that is deliberately crafted by people who care about delivering the experience.
But that's even got an unusual thing removed from it, right? Because there's an extra unusual thing here, which is that like there's one office that's controlling the annoying things of the internet, where that's literally like the people upstairs have an agenda.
Right, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. I think it's just an interesting example of like this type of approach.
It's so much better because it's like makes more sense.
Right, totally. And by the way, I should mention, because I don't want to be like having all the references be like, this is a better sketch that's American too. Shem, if there are specific sketches that you want to point people towards that like, you know, that feel like if a student brought it in, you'd be like, this, you should really look at this like Mitchell and Webb sketch or this blah, 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 or whatever, you know, like definitely please feel free to share. I will include those in show notes or comments because I do think it'll be really helpful for people to see.
At the end, instead of like plugging myself, I'm just going to mention like 5 or 6 really fun like British sketch shows that might be like cool.
That's great. Awesome. I love that. Thank you. Okay, great. Awesome. So let's move on then to the next one. This next one was the shy fetus. Okay, let's hear thoughts on this one.
I've definitely seeing adult man or woman dressed up as the ultrasound baby before multiple times. I can't remember where, but like that's not new. And also so unusual already that whatever you do with it gets muddied. Right, like it's just the strange setup. I like thinking about the specifics of like someone pretending to be shy to get attention. But this was not, there were too many logistical problems here to like quickly play those specifics. So I don't think that it was a good setup for that idea.
That's interesting. I actually like the way this one played out because I think that this, to me, I thought it was wacky. I thought this was, again, an example of like a kind of gnarly, wacky based reality, but that was like at least kind of felt kind of clear in its own strange way. I think that to me, I like that. To me, it just like pivoted off of the, like, when you go for an ultrasound, they're like, oh, they're being shy. Like, I thought that's why it like plugged in just fine to me. I do think that probably could have been simplified a little bit. Like,
why was delivering the baby gonna cure the shyness?
That's a great question. I have no answer for that. I think it's just like, obviously the baby has to come out over the course of a sketch if someone's pretending to be a baby, right? Like, I think that's just like destiny ordaining it. But yeah, I thought that I like the specifics around what it is for a person to pretend to be shy. I thought those were fun specifics. It was kind of strange to have something that felt so observational laid out across such a like bizarre, like base reality / setting. But I kind of like that about it. I don't know. I felt like a little loosey goosey, but I thought I was surprised that like the specifics were a little tighter than I would have expected. Shem, what were you thinking?
Why? What? Like, as in, like, just like. I'm a shy person, like, and it's like I would love someone like who had like just a more even just a much simpler, are you shy, or are you a person who pretends to be shy? Because I'm actually shy and that's my culture. And like just sort of interacting with like all the annoying ways people are like, I'm so introverted, and they'll just like be like loud and annoying about it. That's a fun observation, a really bizarre way to like do it. And I think this was a sketch where they were dancing at the end.
Yes, this was, and you hated that.
Absolutely no way. Like, that was just so like, what do you like, anger, like, just and then again, everyone is lovely and like and you're all blessed individuals, but it was just like a real like, that's just not the tone I'm wanting from like British comedy. So it felt like so like inserted or forced, or like yeah, that's just not how people in sketches there.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
So funny because I
totally
liked the dance. I was like, oh, they're having fun at least. They're dancing.
I was like, get these fucking theater kids off my screen right now.
That's really funny.
Nightmare was a funny button. I did like that joke.
Yeah, that's a fun button. Yeah.
I think like doctor telling you that your baby is X is a really worn premise. And if that is a premise you have, maybe think of a different way to do it. I thought the standard should have been higher here. But I like the idea of this observation.
I think what I like about it is I feel like I like that it was a big swing, like a big goofy swing of a stage picture.
Fair enough,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's something to be said for that. But yeah, anyway, that's my only.
The young man playing the baby is also clearly a star, so
yeah, he's very good.
That was a strong table read.
Yeah.
Situation.
Yeah. All right, shall we move on to weekend update? I think was next. All right, 2 thumbs up from Shem. Shem, let's hear it. What were you thinking about weekend update?
It's fun that they can swear because we have adults watching the show, so that was like a relief. And then some of these were like, great. This is like the woods near Prince Andrew's, near Andrew McMahon's house. That's where his body will be discovered or whatever. Like, great. That's a level of like mean satirical comedy that I want like throughout the whole like tone. Like that like punch. That felt like a. That's the kind of thing I would write, which is the highest praise I can give. But yeah, it just felt like sufficiently like fun and like mean. The Khomeini joke, whatever, fuck off. Like, we've stopped doing those. But that felt very British. Like that, like the see. Oh, we're having like fun, like saying like see names. They should stop grinning and looking so pleased themselves after each joke.
Anya was clearly like, I'm doing this. I find her charming because she was on Taskmaster, so just love her. I thought that helium joke was amazing.
That was very funny. That was a very funny joke. I will say, I want to know though about the character arrival, right? There was the excuse me, the Captain Birdseye.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think, Shem?
No, you don't need to do that. I know who Captain Birdseye is. It's like, oh, it's that guy. Like, it's fun. Like, he eats fish fingers or whatever. Like, and again, it's a thing that you do in like America. Like, you'll tell some jokes and you'll stop down the fun, and someone will do a big fun character for no good reason. But like, it just didn't feel needed. Like, it's so long. The show felt so long. I've never once been in Britain laughing along and thinking, oh, let me have some anodyne wet leg shoved in. Like, the whole, like, just the SNL of it all was like robbing the show of like so much like joy. So like, yeah, I just wish that had been either shorter or more fun or just a separate thing. I know you do it in New York, but you just don't have to do it like that there. Or there are other ways to like make those sorts of moves that would feel more normal. You don't have the culture of like chat shows and waving people over and like doing a thing. It just doesn't like him storming the stage and like taking over would feel like more organic, or like just other ways of having those interactions I would be more on board with.
Yeah, totally. I think that is really interesting to hear. I think Weekend Update will be a very interesting thing to watch as a space where like how it does or does not differentiate itself from the US SNL, because it is sort of its own little kind of capsule thing within the context of an episode sometimes. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to take shape, or whether it sort of bleeds more into the rest of the show or not as it goes along. Yeah, Madalyn, any other thoughts for you about Weekend Update?
I did like the Captain Birdseye character in terms of like a SNL desk piece. I thought it worked, and it had a big turn, and it was funny, and the character it worked. That was a nice character. I honestly kind of wish there was another one.
Yeah.
I like the desk bits because I think they're usually places for good, clear games. So I would look forward to more of them potentially.
I also think they're places where they're often a nice container for an actor's impression or some specific character that they do without the stress of having to embed it into an entire sketch. So I think that some of the sketches that maybe didn't do quite as well in a full sketch context, I think would actually have done quite well as a sort of monologue version, right? Sorry, not monologue, but as a sort of Weekend Update appearance. So I think it'll be an interesting space to watch within the show. All right, let's move on to the Shakespeare sketch.
Hamnet, the most teachable sketch of the night.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, go ahead and teach us.
Oh, I could never. Well, okay. So first of all, it's like a Hamnet parody. We have these like this immediate time jump where I'm like, why did we do that? We don't need that time jump in a live sketch. But then it becomes clear that it ends up being kind of a sub game. But there's that's always a little bit of a tricky thing in a live sketch. Then you get the move in the second beat where it's finally a game of Shakespeare getting a cunty little earring. That's so funny to me. You could make the cunty little earring the whole sketch, full stop. Do moves from Hamnet where Shakespeare just wants you to notice his cunty little earring. Like, could we have the bird come in and be like, think it's shiny and take it? Like, there's just so many Hamnet cunty little earring things you could do that would be surprising from different angles. But then you time jump again, so you were like, oh, okay, no, it's a time, this is part of it. And then the chain with the outfit was too unusual thing. Like, why was he dressing more like cunty or more Shakespearean? So that was a confusing move. Then bringing back a completely different man is funny, but then it just becomes Shakespeare current stuff. So it lost any whiff of the specificity that it could have had. When really, like, sometimes the first thing that you have is the best thing and you need to stay on it.
Yeah.
That's my long-winded take on that scene.
No, I think that checks out with my experience watching it too. Shem, how about you? What did you think?
Our son is dead. And he never got to see my cunty little earring. Alas. Like that.
Right?
So much more fun than the back and forth and the
and
it's like
He
yeah,
left it on the table.
Yeah, totally agreed. I think that was, and I think that sometimes, especially if you're doing a lot of time jumps in a sketch, it's worth stepping back and being like, is this actually adding something? Am I trying to do too much? I do agree that like that was to me the brightest spot of the sketch. And then I was so sad when we sort of like either kind of lateral moved away from it or just sort of circled something around it. So I think that that's a great thing to bear in mind. Yeah.
I'm laughing because being like, I'm sad my son died, but I'm also sad he didn't see my earring is so fun. Like, come on, right? Ugh, Shem, we'll write that one for them next time.
Yeah, I think you guys should. All right, should we move on to the Paddington Bear one?
We can skip it.
Yeah.
I actually think there's a good sketch here, but it didn't come out.
Yeah, I think that this one to me just like didn't like the idea of in the well okay let's get specific in like what
There's
how it
too
didn't
many
come out,
unusual things in the setup.
Yes, right. I thought this was going to be bachelorette party at the Paddington exhibit first, right? Which you could play, you could do a full sketch about, and then the reveal, the like Paddington is actually a real bear, and then why did I hire a real bear to play Paddington? I think that you have to label that faster and maybe even ahead of playing the beats or something, because I think that's where the this is where we talk about like again based reality setting. This was like a little confused and hard to latch onto. So only after the fact were you retroactively like, oh, that's what that was. And I think that going, oh, that's what that was, is often a sign that you didn't quite set up your sketch in the way that you maybe needed to.
If you wanted to play this game the way you did, why not start it off by being like, we've got this exhibition. It's the real bear. Like,
right, the real bear that Paddington was based on.
Right, like, just label it up top. It will work better, we promise.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It just felt like I've seen too many like, oh, but he's a bear. Like, that I would tolerate the sketch if it was when Paddington 1 had been released. But like when you're like 3 movies deep, or many books, live shows, whatever, you can't go like, oh, but he's a bear. Like that's an observation that's already like do Magic Paddington XXL. You know, have much more fun with that than like just the bear is a bear. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes like sketches when they devolve into like the goriness, and SNL US has been having this experience too a few times this season actually, where it runs out of steam really, really fast. You just have to really set up your scaffolding very solidly to get to have that play fun. Okay, should we just move on to the next one then? I think that okay, great. The next one is the bra shop, the bra associate who wants to help you look good in front of the other customers, basically. This one I think is also kind of an interesting teachable one. It didn't really, I didn't think it was super strong. I do think there's the idea of a bra, like an associate at the store like this who wants to like boost your confidence by lying about how great you look or something. That's fun, but I think it didn't plug into the scene at all, really. Like, I think that it felt like we were watching 2 people playing make-believe together. And I think there's a more fun way. There's a way to have more fun with the character who is like this character who's like trying to make you look, sound good or feel good, to frame what you find fun about that and play with that. But I think that I think if a student brought this in, I would ask them, what's your favorite part about this sketch? Like, what's the part that you find most fun and that you find most unusual here? Because I think I could imagine this being inspired by a few different things, and I'm not totally sure what the best direction is to take without talking to the writer about what they loved most about it. What do you guys think?
To me, at least, it felt like the character of the bar salesperson felt very like stock, almost, of like, like the way everyone here is like a New Jersey mom or like a Brooklyn guy. They do is just in that like wheelhouse of like characters of like, oh yeah, so, like that. So I was immediately like, okay, and not that excited. And like the fast shows like suit you. So like character energy was also like very like in that setting. It was like. But I was like, oh my god, please like do something cool with great, a sketch about bras. I don't know like that much, so I haven't seen that many sketches about bras. So it's like there's so many like fun little like things on the table to like do. Like it's yeah, like there were so many like fun little premises or things to unpack. And it was like, okay, yeah, I get it. And I wasn't like, oh my god, like wish I just wanted to be. I was like leaning forward, like now's the time.
Yeah.
This didn't make me laugh, but I really liked it. It was a bad sketch, but maybe like a good Mad TV character piece.
Right. Yeah.
You know, okay. And I also like find Emma City quite charming. And she's one of the cast members that I do know a lot about. And I think I actually, Shem, yeah, I think just like seeing a sketch about something on TV about a bra fitting delighted me so much. I bet Emma wrote most of it, and I think she's more of an actor. And I like Emma, like let me write for you. I'll make this sketch real funny. Yeah, it was. I don't know. I really liked a lot of the pieces, but no, it didn't really do any of the mechanics that would have made it have hard jokes that the audience was laughing at. But I like this character and I wouldn't mind seeing her again.
When you say, let's just unpack that even more. Like when you say the hard mechanics, because I have a few thoughts here. Like I think that like, what does it look like? Like what does how does she define the different bras potentially? Like what does it look like to try them on? What kind of mechanics are you thinking about?
I mean, I'm thinking more about character point of view in terms of like, she sees herself more as like a therapist or life coach than a bra salesman. And I just would love, I think she could have gone through more customers and like seeing how you fix people's self-esteem issues with bras could be very funny. And I think it got caught up a little bit on this funny thing. I forget exactly what she said, but I guarantee you this is where it started, of like yelling out to other people in the room. So other people think, right? Like, I bet you that's where it's, she had some funny phrase for that.
Judge the surrounds.
Judge the surround. We can judge the surrounds. I guarantee you that's where it started. And I don't think that was the funnest thing to play about it. Or if you're gonna do that, like find different ways to yell about things in there that's surprising to the people outside, I guess. But to me, it's like bra fitter who fancies themselves life changer is playable and could be quite charming and funny. Also, like watching like pathetic women or like normal women and feeling sad about themselves and like hearing those problems and then having them feel better about them, being like, this shouldn't have worked, but I like you, you know, like that's very funny. Like that, she's like, yeah, okay, sure, bra lady, like that's very funny to me, and you can play that.
Yeah.
I don't know, this like hit with me in my heart, but not as a sketch teacher.
Yeah, no, I think that resonates though, because it did feel almost more like in a way like a short play than a real like sketch in a way, because there was sort of no beats, there was no kind of heightening, but there were two characters having a sort of an emotional transformation together. So I do think that there is a way where this really was kind of more of a short narrative than a kind of more traditional sketch. But yeah, Madalyn, I want to see you write this sketch. I think you'd write a really funny version of it.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on this one? The last thing of the night was the 45 seconds with 4 acres, which is basically kind of a bucket for impressions. I'm curious if that's how it'll be every time or if it will be recurring. What were your guys' thoughts on this one?
I asked Dara, who is Irish, if he liked it, and he was like, it's just like 4 impressions with a catchphrase to make it a bit, so it was fine. And I'm like, okay, I didn't misunderstand it. Cool. I'm actually fine with something short and strange to end the show.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I thought what I liked about it was that it felt very different. Like, I know, SNL has the like videos, sketches sometimes at the end, like, but I like that this felt different and like not something that SNL in the US would do. I guess this is another thing where I'm like, watch this space. Like, I'm just curious to see what it is that it's sort of this like low budget talking, like impressions, like something that doesn't feel like super produced. I think is an interesting thing to see on a show that the original SNL would not do. So as we're sort of watching to see how it differentiates itself, I'm kind of interested in that. Shem, any other thoughts from you on this one, or this really just didn't left no impression?
Ironically, yes. It was just like I love short and weird. This was short.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
totally fair. Yeah. There was sort of I'm curious if like more of a specific bucket or something could have led to it popping a little bit more. But I agree, it was short, and the impressions are like it's interesting to see somebody do kind of impressions. But yeah, I think this one, it didn't really feel like plugged into anything else really specifically. But that's I'm curious to see what happens with this time slot in future episodes. Yeah. And that was the full show. So I am really curious. Yeah. Shem, I'm so glad that you were here. I think it's really, in this show, like we talk about it like as sketch teachers, obviously to like deconstruct and learn from, but I think it's absolutely impossible not to, at least in the first episode, to clock and note and think about the sort of impact of what it means to take a show that is kind of fundamentally so fundamentally an American show that I think a lot of Americans who are listening to this might be surprised to realize just how American it is, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of stuff about the relationship to celebrities, the sense of what is or isn't unusual, a sense of the sort of like some of the like self-referentialness of it, right? That I think is that it's genuinely, I think, hard to know if you've just sort of like if it's just sort of been your sort of like reference point for so long. So I really appreciate you talking about it and you're sharing your thoughts with us. And that also, like, both as a person who did not grow up watching SNL in the US, and as a sketch teacher too, and as just like a brilliant writer and director in your own right too. So I really thank you for being a guest today. This was really so much fun. Before we go, I would love to hear plugs. I know, Shem, you said that you were only going to plug shows that people like, British shows that people should check out, but I also do want to make sure that you plug anything that you have specifically coming up that you would like people to know about. So first, let's get like your specific plug, and then we can hear the shows that you would recommend people check out.
Come see the foundation that used to be in New York. We're sometimes quite good.
You guys are always quite good.
I'll put on the poster. And then just like super quickly, and there's like just so many shows, non-exhaustive list, but like if you can ever check out Lazy Susan, they're incredible. Goodness Gracious Me from like back in the day, fucking incredible. Big Train, so great, like so fun, so weird, fun like early Simon Pegg. What a live sketch show. Watch This Morning with Richard Not Judy with by Lee and Herring. That's such a fun, like cool, like taking it fucking on the hour that sped into like the armistice. That created a whole crew of like incredible talent, like still making stuff down to this like day. And I could go on and on, but obviously Brass Eye and Jam and all of that. Not the 9 o'clock news, like going all the way back to like all the stuff that Vic and Bob did, like the Far Show, and anything with fucking Harry Enfield, like just so many really incredible, really fun, really sharp comedy writers. Sheeps are great. Like I just can't stop thinking of them, and all of them would have done a better job. Anyway, thank you so much for having me. That's such a lovely
No, of course. I genuinely do think that it will be really, because again, like as you're learning how to write sketch, as you're watching on like there's no shortcut aside from watching a ton of sketch and writing a ton of sketch, right? And you learn so much from seeing how different shows approach things, how different people approach things, and also knowing that within a show there's going to be good episodes and bad episodes too. So it's really interesting to continue to fine tune your experience of watching all of these things and nuance your understanding of any like area of comedy. So in this case, if this is your first dip into like British comedy, I like highly encourage you to check out all of these things that Shem has recommended, and I will include those in the show notes. So Shem, I'll follow up and make sure I didn't miss anything before we release this episode. Madalyn, how about you? Anything you'd like to plug?
I just got my coaching going on, and so if you have a story that you need help with, let me know, and I would love to help you. Yeah.
Amazing. And I will just plug, as always, this book that I am writing right now, that all these conversations are sort of adjacent to, I guess. And the book is Unusual Things, a guide to sketch comedy for writers, fans, and anyone else. So if you are interested in sketch comedy, if you have friends who are interested in sketch comedy, please spread the word. Let them know about the Substack, let them know about the Instagram. We have potentially some exciting updates coming up in the near future. And it will really help to show that there's an excited audience who likes to talk and nerd out about sketch. Thank you both so much for being here. My voice made it to the end. This is so exciting. Now I'm going to go drink some tea and honey. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.